October 31st, 835 AD. Across the Frankish Empire, church bells announce something unprecedented. Tomorrow marks the first empire-wide celebration of All Saints' Day, decreed by Emperor Louis the Pious himself. Christian families gather for evening prayers, but in the shadows between candlelight, older beliefs persist. Whispers of ancient spirits, seasonal boundaries growing thin, and customs predating Christ by thousands of years. This moment captures the beginning of Halloween's transformation, ancient pagan traditions colliding with Christian adaptation. What emerged wasn't our candy-filled celebration. It was something far more complex and spiritually intense than modern trick-or-treaters could imagine. We're about to uncover the real medieval origins that historians have been piecing together for decades. Chapter 1. Fires before Christ. Long before medieval Christians celebrated All Saints' Day, this time of year held profound spiritual meaning across Northern Europe. In Ireland, ancient monuments tell the story in stone and sunlight. At the hill of Tara stands one of Europe's oldest structures, the Mound of Hostages, built around 3500 BC. Every November and February, the rising sun illuminates its inner passage, marking seasonal transitions our ancestors considered sacred. These Neolithic peoples understood something about late autumn that would echo through millennia. The Celts built elaborate festivals around this seasonal shift. Their celebration of Samhain marked more than harvest's end. It was a time when the boundary between our world and the spirit realm grew thin. Unlike their other festivals celebrating life and growth, Samhain embraced endings, death, and the possibility that death might not be permanent. Archaeological excavations at Ireland's Hill of Ward reveal layers of intense burning spanning centuries. Later medieval Irish texts describe the site as central to Samhain's fire ceremonies, preserving stories about communities extinguishing their fires and rekindling them from a single sacred flame. Though whether this happened on a massive coordinated scale remains folklore rather than documented history. Celtic communities gathered around large fires during Samhain. People wore disguises, which folklore explains as confusing supernatural visitors. The word bonfire itself may derive from bonfires, though etymologists still debate the true origin. These autumn traditions faced their first transformation when Christianity arrived. Not through Roman conquest, which never reached Ireland, but through missionaries who developed sophisticated strategies for cultural adaptation. When Christian leaders encountered Samhain, they made a brilliant strategic choice. Rather than destroy their beloved traditions, they would redirect them. Chapter 2. The Great Transformation. The year 835 AD changed everything. Emperor Louis the Pious made All Saints' Day on November 1st mandatory throughout the Frankish Empire. Sophisticated cultural strategy disguised as religious decree. Church leaders created Allhallowtide, a 3-day Christian festival encompassing October 31st through November 2nd. All Hallows' Eve, All Saints' Day, and All Souls' Day offered Christian alternatives to pagan death focus. Saints and martyrs to honor, souls in purgatory to help through prayer and charity. Medieval people didn't abandon their ancestral beliefs, they merged them with Christian practice. The results were fascinating. Church bells rang throughout All Hallows' Eve, officially calling Christians to prayer. But medieval Europeans also credited these bells with supernatural powers. Bell inscriptions like Fulgura Frango, I break lightning, reflected widespread beliefs that blessed bronze could shatter evil spells and drive away demons. Holy water served protective functions similar to ancient charms. Religious crosses replaced pagan symbols as spiritual shields. Christian prayers for the dead fulfilled the same emotional needs as ancestral spirit communication. The Church's masterstroke was All Souls' Day on November 2nd, creating an official mechanism for Christians to help deceased relatives escape purgatory through prayers, masses, and charitable giving. The ancient Celtic belief in ongoing relationships between living and dead survived intact, simply redirected through Christian theology. By the 14th century, this synthesis had produced one of medieval Europe's most beloved traditions, souling. Chapter 3. Beggars and Soul Cakes. Medieval Halloween found its most distinctive expression in souling. poor families going door to door requesting special cakes in exchange for prayers. This wasn't children's play. It was serious spiritual business connecting communities across class lines. Soul cakes were small, round, spiced pastries marked with crosses. The transaction was explicit. Give me food, and I'll pray for your deceased relatives' faster release from purgatory. Shakespeare referenced this practice in The Two Gentlemen of Verona, describing someone puling like a beggar at Hallowmas, speaking in the thin, pleading voice solars would use, requesting cakes. Medieval families prepared for All Hallows' Eve through various protective rituals. They sprinkled holy water around their homes, displayed crosses prominently, and carried blessed objects for spiritual defense. Some traditions involved salt barriers around doorways, iron objects hung near entrances, and candles placed in windows to guide friendly spirits while repelling malevolent ones. Communities maintained bonfire traditions, particularly in the Celtic regions. Families gathered for communal fires, sharing food and stories while flames supposedly drove away evil spirits. The specific rituals around these fires survive mainly in later folklore, particularly woods, ceremonial circuits, special arrangements that may reflect romantic elaboration rather than authentic historical practice. Performance traditions also emerged. Disguised groups traveled house to house, entertaining families with songs, jokes, and dramatic performances in exchange for food and drink. These mumming traditions developed elaborate costumes and masks, officially celebrating the feast but maintaining clear connections to ancient beliefs about confusing supernatural visitors. If you're enjoying this deep dive into medieval history, hitting that like button and subscribing really helps me reach my goal of bringing you more fascinating historical content like this. Your support means I can keep researching these incredible stories and sharing them with fellow history lovers. Now, let's explore how these beloved traditions eventually faced their greatest challenge. Chapter 4: When Traditions Turned Dangerous. Medieval Halloween's golden age couldn't last forever. By the late medieval period, cultural forces that had created Allhallowtide began working against it. The rise of witch persecution fundamentally changed how authorities viewed seasonal customs. Practices that had seemed innocent, gathering herbs, wearing disguises, performing seasonal rituals, suddenly appeared potentially suspect to officials concerned about supernatural activities. Folklore developed elaborate beliefs about Halloween's supernatural dangers. Crossroads became notorious as meeting places for spirits and demons. Ancient burial sites were strictly avoided, as people believed the dead mingled freely with the living on this night. The most significant threat came from the Protestant Reformation of the 16th century, which directly challenged Halloween's theological foundations by rejecting Catholic doctrines about purgatory and intercession for the dead. Protestant reformers argued that souls couldn't be held by prayers, masses, or charitable giving. They were either saved or damned at death. This demolished souling's entire purpose. If prayers couldn't help the dead, why exchange soul cakes for them? Some Protestant territories restricted All Souls' Day celebrations entirely. Centuries-old traditions of community charity and spiritual connection faced suppression as quote-unquote Papist superstition. Many Halloween customs survived by becoming secular folk tradition, stripped of religious meaning but maintaining community functions. The carved turnip tradition illustrates this evolution. By the 19th century, Irish and Scottish communities were creating elaborate jack-o'-lanterns from turnips and potatoes, hollowed-out vegetables with grotesque faces, illuminated by candles and placed on windowsills. These connected to folklore about the Stingy Jack, a character so dishonest he was rejected by both heaven and hell, doomed to wander Earth with only a coal ember for light carried in a carved turnip. These jack-o'-lanterns provided light while supposedly protecting homes from malevolent spirits. But by this period, Halloween had transformed from medieval religious observance into folk tradition preserved by cultural memory rather than theological conviction. By the 18th century, Halloween had lost most official religious significance across Europe. What remained were community customs focused on seasonal celebration, storytelling, and social gathering rather than supernatural protection or prayers for the dead. Yet something remarkable happened. The core themes survived every transformation. The focus on death and seasonal transition, community solidarity during dark times, ritualized relationships between living and dead, all these elements proved remarkably resilient. When Irish immigrants brought Halloween traditions to America in the 19th century, they carried these medieval innovations with them. Turnips became pumpkins, soul cakes became candy, and religious vigils became costume parties. But the fundamental structure remained recognizably medieval. Medieval Halloween wasn't just our modern celebration's ancestor. It was a remarkable cultural achievement that helped European communities navigate fundamental questions about death, memory, and seasonal change. These innovations proved so successful they've survived religious reformation, cultural suppression, and centuries of change while maintaining their essential character. The next time October 31st arrives and you see jack-o'-lanterns flickering on doorsteps or children in costumes collecting candy, remember, you're witnessing the continuation of a medieval synthesis that successfully merged pagan practices with Christian innovation, creating traditions strong enough to survive everything history could throw at them. As always, thank you for watching. You can find my sources below, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Please don't forget to like and subscribe.